All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Barbara Moreno, and I am with goDCgo and with my colleague Pedro Dana from WABA. Today, we're going to be talking about how to bike to school with some specific tips and safety tips for staff and teachers. For our agenda today, we're going to start off with just a brief overview of goDCgo and school services, just so you can learn a little bit more about us. And then we're going to jump right into how goDCgo supports and promotes biking. So we'll have some really great resources for you. Then I'll kick it over to Pedro and he'll talk a little bit about WABA, Bike Safety 101, and more specifically how to ride a bike to work as school staff. And then of course, we'll leave it open at the end for any type of questions that you might have, but feel free to chat them into the box if you have any questions or concerns. I already see one. Oh, great. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, WABA, for all your work on increasing bike lanes in DC. Look at that. All right. Great way to start off this, this webinar. So I'm going to just take that energy and start talking a little bit more about goDCgo. So goDCgo and school services. For those that are new, goDCgo is an initiative of the District Department of Transportation. We are a leading resource for transportation information and options. So if you ever go to goDCgo.com, you'll see that we have a plethora of resources on any mode that you're looking to get more information on. So if you're looking to, of course, get more information on biking, highly recommend going to goDCgo.com. Looking for more information on walking trails, public transit, scooters, those new cool mopeds that you see everywhere. You're going to find a lot of that information over at goDCgo.com. And part of the reason that we have so much of these resources around sustainable transportation is one, that is what sustainable transportation is. Sustainable transportation is biking, walking, taking public transit, ride sharing, so carpooling, things like that. And by providing these resources, we are able to encourage the use of sustainable transportation more and more in the District of Columbia. And so all these resources are free. So go to the website, you'll get all the information you need there. But also if you're like an organization, let's say you're a school admin here on the call, we do also offer consulting services to kind of make your school a little bit more commuter friendly, more sustainable transportation friendly. So all of those are also free and of no charge. And again, another reason to encourage sustainable transportation is because our goal is to decrease traffic congestion, improve air quality, and create a better quality of life in the DC area. And having more people use sustainable transportation to get to and from their destinations is going to be one of the best ways that we're going to be able to achieve that. So goDCgo School Services. So it's a little offshoot of goDCgo. We're here to provide complimentary consultations to any and all types of DC schools. So whether you are a public school, private school, or a charter school, goDCgo is here to help you implement and enhance commuter benefit programs for your staff, and also to encourage students and families to use sustainable transportation, which is exactly what we're here to talk about today. Great. Here's my contact information. If you ever need to reach out, I used to be in the education world, so I'm very excited that now I get to do both of the things I love together. So I get to work with, I still get to work with teachers, and I get to talk about public transportation, which is one of my hugest passions. I've been riding public transit since I was about 4 years old. I grew up in Chicago, so if you have any questions about riding it, any questions about that, please do feel free to reach out. My contact information is there. And we'll be sharing the slides after the webinar as well. So you'll have those ready for you. All right, so to the meat of the presentation, how goDCgo supports and promotes biking. So this is one of the key modes that we care about a lot here at goDCgo.com. So one big way, especially during the pandemic, that we've been promoting and supporting biking is by developing some commute with care tips. So we have these for every mode. So if you're looking for advice on tips on how to commute via sustainable mode, whether it be biking, walking, scootering, public transit, or even carpooling, we have a sheet, one pager with all the tips that you need to make sure that your ride is comfortable and as safe as possible. Additionally, these materials are available in both English and Spanish. So, and again, all on goDCgo.com. So all these resources are on there, so feel free to check them out. This is a great one so that you can kind of understand the precautions that don't need to be taken when riding a bike, especially during the pandemic. Another way that we support biking is by providing a quick snapshot of all the different biking options here in the district. So as you can see in this infographic, our Biking in DC 101 infographic, we provide information on Capital Bike Share, dockless bike share, and scooters, and of course your personal bike. We try and answer the questions that we know that people are going to have, right? So how do you access them? Where can you park them? How do I return them, right? If it's a shared vehicle. How do you lock your bike? And of course, how do you report a problem, right? So those are all situations that you might come across, and most likely you will come across when you're riding a bike in DC. So we want to make sure that you can easily and quickly digest this information. Again, all this information is on goDCgo.com. So this is probably my favorite of the tools when it comes to supporting biking. So we have an interactive map on our website. It allows people of all ages to plan a very bike-friendly trip. So what do I mean by bike-friendly trip? So one cool thing that our map has that a lot of other places don't have is that we actually have all the Capital Bike Share stations mapped out there. So let's say you know for sure that, hey, I know there's a Capital Bike Share station about a block or so away from me. I don't know if where I'm going is going to have a Capital Bike Share station. I don't know if I should use that mode to get there. This map allows you to put in your current location and then your destination, and it'll point out all the Capital Bike Share stations that are around you, letting you explore other ones that are near you, and also all the ones at the destination that you'll be going to. So I think that's a great tool to use when you're first kind of discovering biking in the district. Another way that this interactive map is really helpful is that it also will help you plan a very bike-friendly route. So you can pick a specific route that allows you to use the trails, the bike lanes, and so you can have a very safe, accessible route to your final destination that's very bike-friendly as well. So again, if you go to our website, goDCgo.com, this one's /interactive map, but highly recommend checking out this resource as you continue your biking journey here in the district. All right, another one of my favorites. So these are our Washington, DC bike maps. So we offer free bike maps to anyone and free paper bike maps. So you'll have one mailed to you if you choose to request one. And your school, if this is something that you're really interested in, let's say your school is like on the Metropolitan Branch Trail or anything like that, like I think Dunbar High School is, you can order up to 200 maps at a time. So all you have to do is, you have two options. You can either send an email to info@goDCgo.com with your name, school address, and a number of maps that you would like to receive. We'll confirm that. And then basically within 2 weeks, you'll have the maps that you want, whether it's a personal map for yourself or if you want to order a bulk amount for your school. Another way that you can request a map is by visiting the goDCgo website. And if you go to the website, you can actually request other types of brochures as well. So if you're looking for metro maps for your school, we can provide those, bus route information, we can also do that, VRE, MARC train, all of that good stuff you can request through the website. So again, we'll be sharing the slides after the presentation, so you can go ahead and just kind of click through your heart's delight on all the various links that I'm providing in the presentation. Right. This is also another one that's really good. So for the DCPS staff that's on the call, you can actually get a free, talking about Capital Bike Share memberships, you can actually get a free Capital Bike Share membership. They're normally $85, but as this is a new rule, they used to actually be just at a reduced rate of $25, which is still pretty good, but now it's even better. So basically you can get unlimited 30-minute rides as DCPS staff with a annual Capital Bike Share membership. Just so you have a sense of what that means, a 30-minute ride. It's about 5 miles, right? So you can get pretty far in the district with this membership. So highly, highly recommend it. We'll be sending the flyer in the post-webinar email. So, and of course, you'll have the slides. The flyer has all the instructions that you need for how to set that up. Basically, you have like a special DC government code. That's how you kind of get the deal. But we'll make sure to share this information post-webinar so you guys can start taking advantage of it. And for the charter people that are on this call, thank you for joining us. There is no kind of charter-wide Capital Bike Share membership, unfortunately, but your school can choose to opt in to a corporate Capital Bike Share membership and have a similar situation as DCPS. So there's a couple of levels. So you 2 levels basically. So your school can either choose to completely subsidize your Capital Bike Share membership. It would be $50 for them for each staff that decides to take advantage of the Capital Bike Share membership. Or they can do a kind of a half and half where you as a staff would pay $25 and your school would subsidize $25 of that. So that is a program that's available to any and all charter schools and private schools as well that are interested in this program. So if you're work at a charter school, are interested in bringing this program to your school, please do reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen. Happy to talk a little bit more in detail about the program, how it can benefit your school. I think it's a really great program to kind of help encourage biking to and from your school. I see questions. We're going to get to them. There's a pause. We're going to get to them. And then I think this is my last one, my last slide, the bike incentive. So this spring, goDCgo, we're very excited about this. We're actually offering school staff a bike incentive that'll work in the form of a reimbursement of up to $250 on the purchase of a new bike for commuting. So of course, email me if you're interested in learning more. Or you can just visit goDCgo.com/bike-incentive. You can look at the application. It's pretty quick, pretty painless, but basically the main requirements to qualify for this bike incentive is that you work at a DC school, and it can be a public, charter, or private school. So whatever school you work at, that works for us. And even if you live in Maryland, it's not any kind of limitations on that. So as long as you work at a DC school, you're good to go, and you have a bike, and you can prove that you purchased that bike and submit the reimbursement, and then we'll basically reimburse you for part of your bike purchase. So I highly recommend taking advantage of this program. I'm also here to answer any questions about it that you might have, but of course we'll be sending the slides, and so you'll have this information as well. All right, so with that, Pedro, you're cool if I just look at the chat real quick, make sure I have, if there's any questions. Oh, sorry, yes, Kenneth. For the Capital Bike Share membership, yes, Nicholas is correct. So it'll be $2 to unlock e-bikes with the DCPS membership. And with that, I will hand it over to Pedro.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I think Kim gave WABA a shout out. Kim, thank you so much. So you're already pretty familiar with what WABA does, but my name is Pedro Dana. I'm the programs director at WABA. My email is right there. If you want to shoot me an email, it's just pedro@waba.org. I always start with this slide with 3 pictures because I especially since we're talking about biking to work, this is kind of like the 3 ways you'll see me bicycling, and very rarely do I look like the person on the right, with like more dedicated bicycling clothes. Generally, I look like the person on the left going to work in my jacket, or in my my button-down shirt, or in the middle, like going to and from errands or having fun with friends. The next slide, please. So the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, our mission is to empower people to ride more bicycles, build connections, and transform places. We do that in hopes of creating a region that is, can you hit the next slide too, please? A region that has a more just and sustainable transportation system where bicycling, walking, and transit are the best ways to get around. So we primarily work in 6 regions. So we're mostly going to be talking about DC proper today, of course, and like any laws that I mentioned will be DC laws. The WABA also works in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax County, Arlington County, and then the city of Alexandria as well. Next slide, please. All right, so as Barbara mentioned, this is kind of what I'll run through today. Talk a little bit about the reasons why you should bike. Why bike to work, right? Why bike to school? Give you a couple of tips of how to prepare for your ride, what you should know for commuting and biking to work, and then also some information about like common issues, hazards, and things to know when you're riding in traffic as well. So cool. We'll start with why should you bike? I think you ask anyone why they bike, they'll give you 1,000,001 reasons. A lot of folks do it because it's convenient. A lot of folks do it because it's cheap. But I think the most important thing, and the thing I really enjoy about working at WABA, is getting to celebrate and recognize all the different ways that people bike and all the different reasons they bike, right? You can be like this person on the right in full kit, going fast and trying to work on your fitness goals or your recreation goals. Or you could be this person on the left who might just be getting an errand, going to the farmer's market, getting their groceries for the day, or just going to see their family. It doesn't matter how fast or how slow you do it. It's good for you, it's good for the planet, and it's a fun way to get around. Next slide, please. So yeah, like one of my favorite ways to ride on a bike is to ride slowly. I enjoy riding slowly. You get to take in the sights, see what's around you. And also in DC, especially in the summer, when you bike slowly, you get a little less sweaty. So that's an important reason to take it slow and see what's going on around you. Next slide, please. And I think my favorite reason for bicycling is that even if you bike slowly, you often get there faster. Whether you're on a fast bicycle riding as fast as you can, or you're on a cabbie taking your time, you'll probably still get wherever you're going faster. If you're going anywhere that is usually less than 3 miles, bicycling is actually faster than driving in most situations. And parking is always easy, and you can have consistent departure and arrival times that you kind of can just decide on and prefer. I saw Kim, you say that you ride slowly too, and that's not necessarily a choice. And I totally hear you, and that's totally fine. And like the speed that you bike is the speed that you bike. And there's, I hope what I'm trying to get at is that, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And you should do what works for you, right? I definitely have days that I'm like, I'm going to take this easy, and I'm not feeling this commute into work today, or my commute back from work has just been a really long day. And I just like lower my gears and like take it easy. So definitely do what works for you. My other favorite thing about riding a bicycle, especially in DC with all the beautiful trails we have, is you can take the scenic route. There are days that I'm like, I'm just going to go home on the way that is by the river or by Rock Creek Park, and making sure that I'm taking in some sights and getting some relaxation while I'm doing it as well. And one of the advantages of taking the scenic route is, next slide, please. You can see a turtle, or you could also get to see awesome things like public art. So DC's got a lot of cool public murals that is definitely worth checking out. You can check out the Murals DC project. And there's also the 51 state murals project as well, which is, I believe, 51 different murals across the whole city in all wards, encouraging folks to make DC the 51st state. So yeah, definitely while you're biking, you get to take in a lot of sights that if you were on the bus or if you're on the car, you're not going to see, and you have access to spaces and green spaces, especially, that other folks don't. Next slide, please. I think probably one of the main reasons when you ask people why they bike is because it's cheap. It's really affordable. And like Barbara mentioned, if you're a DCPS employee or if you're any district employee, I think is the rule now, you get a free Capital Bike Share membership. That's zero cost to you as long as you're riding under 30 minutes. And kind of like, reading between the lines of what Barbara said, you can always dock and redock and then pull out a new bike before the 30 minutes hits. And that's totally fine as long as you go the speed you want to go and you get where you want to go. But even if you buy your own bike or buy a used bike, it can be actually pretty affordable. A good used bike, especially like a hybrid or a city bike, you can get for around $200. And like Barbara mentioned, with the new incentive program, you can get up to $250 back from that purchase that you made. Kenneth, I hear you and appreciate it. Sometimes speed is good. It gets you where you need to go and it gets you there on time. We're all very busy and that's an important part of commuting as well. But maybe on the way back, you can take it a little bit slow. Next slide, please. And then one of my also favorite things about bicycling is that they're really capable machines, right? They're very efficient. But beyond that, they're really great at carrying things and carrying people. Like you can carry your groceries, you can carry kids. If you have like a fancy cargo bike, especially one that has like electronic assist, you can carry other like adult humans. One of our staff members has a cargo e-bike, and every once in a while we'll just give like a grown adult, like a 250-pound adult, like a ride on the back and just ride effortlessly like up a hill. So they're fun ways to get around and also good ways to carry things. So next section will be a little bit about what do you need to ride a bike. So obviously you need a bike. We talked a little bit about what the options for getting a bike is. I think Kenneth might have mentioned gearing up. Highly recommend gearing up. Velocity is another bicycle cooperative in the area that does that, and so is I am forgetting their name right now. Oh, Phoenix Bicycles in Arlington. But beyond the bike, you also need human power. So that's often, your legs, but a lot of folks bicycle with their hands, especially folks with like amputees and people with limited mobility. But you also need to know how to ride a bike. So if you don't know how to ride a bike and you're here and you're like, that's my first step, I encourage you to go to waba.org/classes. And we have learn to ride classes where in 3 hours, 80% of our participants learn how to ride a bike. If you're like, I'm not sure bicycling's for me, I don't feel confident, I don't feel safe, we also have a class called the Confident City Cycling class that's exactly focused on that and trying to get people on a bike and riding into the city. So the next thing here is a helmet. I got my helmet with me and I just wanted to show you all what like a proper helmet fitting looks like. But the thing you're looking for is you want your helmet to be kind of straight on your head. You don't want it to be like that, or like too far back. You want it here. The 2-finger rule is that you want about 2 fingers between your eyebrows and the bottom brim of your helmet. You want it to be snug. So usually there's a clasp in the back that you can tighten and it will like keep it snug for you. You want to put on your straps. You usually want to have 2 fingers here. You don't want to have too much space. Mine's actually a little loose right now. So I'd probably tighten it here. Now I have 2 fingers. And then last thing is you want a figure V around your ears. So like both ears have a figure V. And we also talk about doing a head bang check and making sure like it doesn't shake too much when you put it on. Beyond that, all helmets that you buy in the United States are rated for the same safety rating. So whether you buy a $10 helmet or a $200 helmet, they do the same thing for your head. They protect your head in a very specific kind of accident or a crash. And a couple other notes there is that DC and the region does not require helmets for anyone riding who's 17 or older. So children are required to wear helmets. And then also that, the more expensive helmets usually just give you better circulation. Some have lights built in, some have reflectors and things like that. All right, Kenneth, that's a great segue to bicycle lights. And I always recommend that if you're going to commute, eventually you're going to commute at night, because even as a teacher, I know you all stay late, working late, past 5, past 6. So especially in the fall and the winter, you'll need lights to be seen. So lights do a dual purpose, right? They're to be seen, but also to see. So you might want to figure out what is like, when you're buying a bike lights, you want to figure out what you need. If you're riding in a dark trail at night, you might want to get more like a more a light with more lumens, with more capacity, so that you can see better as well. But the important thing is that you can be seen, both in front with your white light and in the rear with your red light. And this actually is a DC law now, that you are required to have a front and a rear light when riding at night. I will mention that DC cops are technically not allowed to stop you for that. That can't be the primary infraction, but it is, and you can get ticketed if you do something else like riding recklessly, but that's technically not something they can pull you over for. And the other tip here is that if you're riding with your front light, make sure you angle it towards the ground so you're not blinding other pedestrians or cyclists who are coming towards you or any other drivers. Next slide, Barbara. Thank you. The third thing you'll need is a lock to keep your precious bicycle safe. Bike thefts are a thing, and they're very big and popular, and especially in the DC region. So you'll want to make sure you buy a sturdy U-lock is what I would recommend, and I think WABA recommends, to keep your bike safe. And if you look at this picture, there's a triangle in the back that's kind of in a purple shade. That's where you want to lock your bike. So a lot of folks will either get their back tire and the down tube or the seat tube. So they'll get a piece of the frame and a piece of that tire. Or you can actually, as long as you're going through that triangle, you can put your U-lock straight through that tire and get the whole wheel, because it's impossible to remove the wheel from that triangle while it's locked up. I think a good rule of thumb is you should probably spend 10 to 30% of your bike's value on your lock. A lot of locks have insurance as long as you're able to recover the lock. But the more expensive the lock, usually the better technology that you'll have. And it takes a little bit longer time for a bike thief to take it from it, to be able to break through it. So next thing you'll need is a bell. They're a great way to tell people where you are, and also let them know that you plan to pass them, especially when you're coming from behind them, like on a trail. Next, you will need snacks and water. Whether you're biking, 2-3 miles, or you're biking 10 to 15 miles to get into work, or whatever you're doing on your bike, snacks are great. And you'd be surprised how a 2 or 3 mile ride will actually like kick up your metabolism and make you hungry when you get to work, or hungry when you're getting back home. So make sure you have a snack on you, or keep snacks at your desk or your office, and make sure you can drink some water as well, especially in those summer months. And then I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation, riding in regular clothes is really, I find, one of the most empowering things about bicycling. You can buy fancy gear, and you can buy weather appropriate gear. And like if you're into it and it's important to you, like I recommend you do it. Like, have at it. But you can also just bike in your dress, or bike in your dress shirt. Or you can bike in a t-shirt, and when you arrive, you change clothes real quick. My favorite pro tip is that I no longer bike in my work shoes, like my nice dress shoes. I'll bike in like just tennis shoes or sneakers. And then when I get to the office, I just kick them off and put my dress shoes on. And at the end of the day, I just do the opposite, and it keeps my dress shoes like nice and unscuffed, or as unscuffed as possible as I can do at the office. But next important thing to have, and then we'll take a little break after for questions, is having a backup plan is really important. Whether you're driving, whether you're taking the bus, like you always have a backup plan of like, what do I do if this mode of transportation that I've chosen fails, right? Like if the metro has a huge delay, like you might decide that you need to take an Uber, or you need to take a taxi to get to work as quickly as possible. If you're driving and you get a flat, like you're like, how do I get to work on time? So with a bike, I think it's also important to do that. Like learn how to patch a tire is a really important skill. Also, to me, my favorite backup plan is sometimes at the end of the day, I'm tired and I don't want to actually ride my bike home. So I'll put my bike in front of the bus. So all the buses in the DC region have bike racks in front of them. There's usually 2, and there's usually enough space. I've almost never run into the problem of like there being 2 bikes there already. But you can also take your bike on Metro at all times, on the MARC train. There's some restrictions on the MARC, but most trains allow you to do that. Same with VRE, and then Amtrak, if you're coming from like further than those regional commuters, also have bike trains that are really effective. And the last thing I'll mention is Commuter Connections, which is a program of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. I know that's a mouthful, but Commuter Connections is the important thing you need to know. They have this program called Guaranteed Ride Home. So 4 times a year, if you're a commuter and you're stuck in a pinch, so that's you got a flat tire, whether on your bike or in your car, you left work and had to stay at work longer than the bus or the metro is running, they'll actually do a guaranteed ride home and provide a car for you to get home at no cost 4 times a year. So you don't have to get there by yourself or figure something else out. Next slide, please, Barbara. And then I mentioned earlier that bikes are great for like carrying things around. So as you build, as you decide to go on a commute, there are other things you might want to get, like a child seat is pretty great, especially if you want to do school drop off before you go into work, or you have pickup on your way back from school. And there's a lot of other things that you can get, like bike bags and panniers that are dedicated and can let you carry more weight and carry more volume on your bike. So you can stop at the grocery store or pick up a meal for you and your loved one as you're heading back home. So, and then the last thing you need for biking is just having fun. I mentioned that, and I think WABA likes to celebrate riding. So if you're already a bicycle commuter, I know like we often evangelize bike commuting, but it's really important to celebrate people around you who want to try something like this. But to Barbara's point as well, like if someone has driven and always drives into work, but wants to try like walking or taking the bus, like let's celebrate that too, right? All these decisions and choices make a difference in sustainable transportation, which is really what we're trying to do, and trying to reduce our dependency on cars for transportation. So next slide, and I will stop and look at some questions. Teresa, yeah, you can definitely put your bike on the bus. Like I mentioned, there's a rack in front. I will, at the end of the webinar, I'll find the link real quick if you're not familiar with like the bike racks and how they work in front of the bus. But WABA actually has a really cool graphic that like shows you how to do it really easily. On the metro, there used to be a restriction during peak hours, but that changed, I think, about 2 years ago. WABA actually worked on that from 1983 until 2019. But now you can take your bike in at any time. My only recommendation is trying to use the front trains or the back trains. They tend to be the more empty ones, so that you're cognizant of space, not blocking any entrances especially for like people with strollers, people in wheelchairs, like mothers who are expecting. So just being cognizant of your space. Kim, and yeah, that I'd say that's right. Like it really depends on how you ride, where you ride. If you're riding mostly in the city, I'd say just like when it rains, you want to probably wipe down your chain and put a little bit of lube. And that's an important process to do. And that's really easy, and it'll help your drivetrain, stay around for longer. But if you're riding like in really dusty places, so if you're riding on trails, riding in dirt, you might want to do that a little bit more often. So a tune-up, if you're actually going and taking it into a bike shop, I'd say you probably want to do it like once a year. But you could do a lot of that yourself and a lot of preventative care yourself, so that you don't have to do it as often as that. So it really depends. It's kind of hard to give you an exact answer. But cool. I'm going to go into preparing how to ride. And we'll start with the ABC Quick Check. So the ABC Quick Check is a acronym, like a mnemonic device to help you remember the things you should check before you ride a bike. So that's your air, your brakes, your chain, your quick releases, and then the check is just an overview of your bike, and we'll go a little bit through the different processes. We'll start with A for air. Air is obviously really important on a bike, because you could hit the next slide, please, Barbara. That's what keeps you bouncy and not metal on the road. But you want to make sure that your bike tires have air. So the first thing you want to do is squeeze your front and rear tires. Obviously, some bikes have more than just 2 tires. So if you have more than that, squeeze all of them. But you want to squeeze them, and kind of if you're making a fist, you like push on this knuckle, like your thumb knuckle, you want it to be as hard as that and kind of feel that little bit of bounce that you get when you do that, like when you try it. But the fail-safe way is to look at the air pressure number that's listed on the wall of the tire. Generally, you'll have a range, a low and a high. I'd probably recommend you start somewhere in the middle. The low side of the range will make your ride a little bit bouncier, so it'll be a little plusher, but it'll also feel like it's a little harder to bike. And that actually makes you a little susceptible to pinch flats. So like if you hit something, it could pinch the inner tube inside and give you a flat. If you go on the high end of that, it prevents flats, but it will make your ride a little bit like it'll make it much bumpier, especially if you're riding on very thin tires. So like a road bicycle that has like 25 cc tires at 120 psi, it's going to feel real bumpy and jittery. But make sure you check that psi. And while you're checking for the air pressure, you also want to look for cuts and tears, any signs of flaws or any issues going on with the tires. B is for brakes. So generally, in 99.9% of bikes, your left hand brake will do your front wheel, and then your right hand brake will do your rear. R is a good way to remember that, right and rear. Some squeaking is normal. So like if you hear squeaking, that might just mean you have like a little bit of dirt in your rim brakes. Or if you have disc brakes, that can also, they can squeak a little bit. But if you hear something that sounds abnormal or is new, you might want to check that out. If you're not familiar with how to check brakes and adjust them, there's some awesome YouTube tutorials on how to do it, or you can bring it into a bike shop or talk to a friend who might know how to do that. But brake pads do need to be replaced every once in a while, especially if you ride in a lot of rain and grime that picks up. It will really quickly wear through the brake pads. The C in ABC is for chain and also for cranks and cogs. Your chain is important because it, as you pedal, it drives your wheel and makes you move. You want to make sure that your chain is free of rust and debris, and a really good way to do that is to lube your chain, especially after it rains or after you ride through like a really dusty or dirty place, like a trail. The last thing you want to do there is like if you want to just check if your chain is working and you haven't ridden your bike in a while, get your pedal and rotate it backwards, and make sure that the chain actually stays on all the rings. And if you do that, that's a good sign that the chain is working. And you also want to check your shifting as well. But you can do your shifting once you're riding and make sure that everything is all right. The next thing is quick release. They kind of look like those. They're little levers that go on parts of the bicycle that are meant to be removed or adjusted on a pinch. Most commonly, you find it in your seat tube. So under your seat, like the Capital Bike Share bikes actually have these. So they are great bikes that allow someone from like probably the official range is probably like 4.4 to like 6.6 to ride that bicycle. But you can open up the quick release and either raise the seat tube or lower the seat tube based on what you need. And another place you really find them in is the axles of the wheels. And that one's a really important one to look at. Like we talked about securing your bike and locking it. If you have quick releases on your wheels, that means that someone can just come undo the quick release and pull your wheel off. So if that's the case, you might actually want to get a cable lock that attaches to your U-lock and can get your wheel as well, so that your wheel doesn't get stolen. Or you can change the quick release axle into a safety axle that has different kinds of keys. So like either a hex wrench or a torque wrench or some other proprietary key that the makers make that prevent people from just pulling them off. And then lastly, you'll want to do a quick check. Just look for anything that seems broken, anything that makes a weird noise, that rattles. Your saddle shouldn't be wiggling. So sometimes like you think you've adjusted it tight enough, you sit on it and you start like sinking slowly. And you obviously get off the bike, raise the saddle again and make sure you tighten it a little bit tighter. And if I think the important thing here is the ABC Quick Check is for when you haven't picked up your bike in a while, but also I try to do this as quickly, like every time I get on a bike. Like when I get my bike, I'll squeeze my brakes real quick while I'm walking with it to make sure that it gives me the stop. I'll flip my pedals backwards to make sure that the chain is free and moving and not rusted. I'll check my air every single time. And then my quick releases, I generally won't check unless I've fiddled with the bike recently, but I'm doing the ABC Quick Check every single time. And it can be really short or it can be a more in-depth version depending on how long it's been since you rode. All right. I got a couple of commuting tips. And in this section, I know a couple of folks mentioned that they already commute into work or ride a bicycle for errands. So if you got other tips as I'm going through or something that resonates with you that you think your colleagues on the call might appreciate or learn from, feel free to like throw those in, and definitely happy to have like a little bit of discussion of what those look like. But my first tip, and I think this tip applies to everyone, regardless of the mode you're in, like whether you're driving, you're on the bus, walking, biking, scootering, be polite and be predictable is the most important thing about sharing space with others. So you want to make sure that you're sharing space courteously and then communicating your intentions with others. So on a bicycle, what that often means is signaling with your hands and also using your voice or a bell to let people know where you're going. So that's really important if you're on a trail, especially. But if you're in traffic, you also want to let cars behind you, cars in front of you, cars at the intersection know whether you're going left or right. So left and right is really easy. Like right is just point to your right. Left, you can just point to your left. Another way to do a right turn is actually doing this. And this comes from the days of when cars didn't actually have blinkers. So if you were in the driver's seat and you wanted to turn right, you would do this so that you let the person behind you know you were going right. And the way to signal that you're stopping or slowing down is the opposite of that. So you'll want to put your elbow straight out and then just put your hand out. And that signals to you, other riders, other drivers, that you plan on stopping. Next slide, please. It's really important to know your rights and responsibilities as a bicycle user, as a bicyclist. So I highly recommend when Barbara sends these slides out, make sure you get familiar with the DC bike laws, the Maryland bike laws, and Virginia bike laws, depending on where you ride. In DC, WABA works with DDOT and also with the MPD to create a DC bike law guide that's actually really small. It's a little pocket guide. If you're interested in getting a physical copy of that, you can always email me or come to the WABA office, and we have plenty of those, but we also have a digital version of those. And I like keeping one of those in my panniers. I do this every day for work. Sometimes I come upon a bicycle crash, and I'll just go over to the person and make sure that they have the bike laws and make sure that they know what their rights were and can be like, did I do something wrong or not? But yeah, definitely know the laws and practice predictable behavior as much as possible. So that means stopping at stop signs and stopping at red lights. Next slide. This one's, I think, is really important. And the next couple of things we'll go through is actually the most common ways that bicycle crashes happen. So like conflict happens between drivers and bicyclists or bicyclists and pedestrians. So the number one way is actually riding in the same direction of traffic. So the most dangerous thing you can do statistically on a bicycle is to ride against traffic. That's how most crashes actually happen. So ride in the same direction as traffic. That's really important because drivers are used to looking in those directions when they reach intersections. Same for pedestrians. When you get to a crosswalk, you're looking left and then you're looking right, and you're expecting traffic from a certain direction. So you want to make sure that you're following that and meeting that expectation. And this is the only caveat I'll add here is that DC has these special bike lanes called counterflow lanes that actually go against traffic. That's why they're called counterflow. One of the main areas they're in are actually 8th Street Northeast. So like on the 8th Street corridor, on G Street and I Street, the streets for cars go one direction, but the bicycle lane goes the opposite direction. So that's really important, a really important reminder for like the rear lights that we talked about. So a lot of folks will just put any light on the rear. So if you're going in the counterflow and your rear is a white light, someone might think you're coming in their direction as opposed to against you. So just make sure you're cognizant of that. All right. I talked about riding how you feel comfortable and wearing what you feel comfortable, but I think another part of bicycling is ride where you feel comfortable. So even I'm a pretty confident rider, and there's places in the city, places in the region that I'm like, nope, not doing this on a bicycle, and I'll get off and I'll be a pedestrian for a 5-minute walk or a couple of blocks, and I'll get back on my bike when I feel safe. So it's important to remember that you can always just get off your bike, ride on. You can also ride on the sidewalk. with a couple of caveats there, like if you're riding on the sidewalk, make sure you're riding really slowly. You're a guest there. You're not, that place is meant for pedestrians, wheelchair users, people using strollers. So make sure you're yielding to pedestrians and other users. And the other quick reminder there is that sidewalk riding is prohibited in downtown DC. It's a bit of an amorphous location, but generally it's north of Massachusetts Ave and like the Golden Triangle area. So like Farragut North, McPherson Square, all the way to like GW and Foggy Bottom area. But I think that's a really important reminder that like, I sometimes will go out of my way to take a longer route because it's a little bit safer or it's a little bit nicer of a route. Like it might be in a tree covered street that I really like biking on. So those are decisions that you have to make for yourself and try out and see like, but remember that if you get somewhere and you're like, this doesn't work for me, just get off your bike, become a pedestrian, and then figure out where the next location is for you to get back on your bike. And then the last tip I have is also one that applies, I think, is good for everyone, because if you're a bicyclist, you might encounter this in front of you, but if you're a driver or you're in a car either as a passenger, whether it's an Uber or like with someone this is actually a super common crash that happens and conflict that happens with bicycles and cars, is that the person in the car, usually on the left side of the car, whether the driver or passenger, would just open the door into the bike lane. And the bicyclist will either hit the door or the door will hit the bicyclist and throw the bicyclist into the street. So this is super, super dangerous, obviously, and I'm not trying to scare you, I'm not trying to scare you. The way to avoid that is to avoid the door zone and trying to stick to that leftmost 2/3 of the bike lane that you see here. So that red part is where the door would open. And then the green part is where you kind of want to stick as close to that white line as possible. And the more you ride in the city, the more you'll see visual cues, right? You'll see someone park about a block away, so you know they might be coming out of their car. So you know that when you're getting there, you might want to be careful and they might be opening the door. If you're in the car, a really easy way to prevent this is something that a campaign DC did a while ago. I think it might have been with goDCgo. Barbara, I don't know if you remember. It was called the DC Reach. It's also called the Dutch Reach. A lot of us, when we're leaving a car, especially if you're in the driver's seat, you'll reach with your left hand and just open the door. But instead, if you use your right hand, what that does is that forces you to turn your body and gives you an opportunity to look behind you or check your mirror to see if someone's coming behind you, and lets you open the door a little more safely. And the reason I mention this is that every single time, 100% of the times that someone is doored, the fault is with the driver, the person who opened the door. The bicyclist or the scooter rider or someone on a mobility device, if they get hit by the door, like it is that person's fault for having opened the door onto them. So, and the last tip I got is pay attention. We kind of talked about that in different scenarios. Pay attention to what's going on in your surroundings. Don't expect pedestrians, drivers, bicyclists, scooter users, moped users to be following the law either, right? People break the law all the time. They don't do predictable behavior. So by knowing that, you keep yourself a little bit safer by predicting people's behavior like that. But also, I want to share the message of paying attention also allows you to see things that you wouldn't see otherwise. My favorite thing about being on a bike, sometimes I'll bike a route that I ride on the bus a lot, and then I'll bike that route and be like, huh, I never noticed this store was here. I never noticed this park was here. I never noticed that there's this awesome tree that's blooming here right now. Because being on a bike is just a different experience. You're not in glass and metal and kind of encapsulated. You're outside and you're enjoying the outside, and you can take in and have different experiences. But that's all I got. I highly recommend folks visit our website at WABA, WABA.org. If you have questions, if you're looking for classes, if you have friends or family who are looking for those things, please look there. And also, Barbara, I don't mean to take your spot, but also check out goDCgo.com, especially goDCgo.com/school to find out more information about school transportation, incentives, and a whole lot of other things that Barbara and her team have at your disposal.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Pedro. And thank you everyone for joining today. There's a couple questions in the chat that I want to get to. One was specifically about capital bike share bikes and how frequently they get maintained. Pedro, do you want to take this one?
I can, yeah. I'm not sure how often they get maintained, but I always, when I ride a Capital bike share, I definitely do an ABC quick check. I've had a couple that, I pulled and the tires were flat, or like the seat post just wouldn't stay in place. Um, if you find a bike like that, just put it back into the dock, or if it's a dockless one, the black e-bikes now, you can actually just, click there's a little wrench button on the dock or on the bike, and you can report it for maintenance. But the mechanics that work at Capital Bike Share, like, they're phenomenal. They do an amazing job, and like their bikes are usually in really good shape. And it's less so that Capital Bike Share doesn't do a good job. It's that sometimes users will cause a problem and then not like report it. So if you see something, just report it.
Okay, awesome. Yes, they're pretty frequently maintained. I don't know the exact frequency, but I know whenever I'm near one, there's always a van like right by it. I don't have an exact date, but I would say pretty frequently. But as Pedro said, there's always occasionally issues, so definitely do make sure to flag them. And then Teresa, you asked if we'll be offering this session again. Potentially, but if not, we did record it, and we do have a YouTube channel with all of our webinars. So we'll be sending out the recording after this, and then we'll also have it on our goDCgo YouTube channel. So you can always refer back to it if you need anything, or if you want to share it with someone you thought maybe someone else would benefit from this. It'll be on there as well. And then Nicholas, you didn't pose it as a question, but I think this might be beneficial for you. I don't know if you work at DCPS or at a charter school, but if you work at either, both of them offer pre-tax benefits for transit benefits. So you can actually take out, I know this won't solve your problem entirely, but if you're worried about just having it cost a little bit too much, when you take your transit benefits actually out prior to the taxes, it ends up saving you money. So you can actually save like up to about $1,000 a year. So if you're interested in that, actually we have specific information on the DCPS pre-tax benefits on the goDCgo.com/school website. So I highly recommend checking it out as an option. And as Pedro said, right, you don't always have to just bike. If you don't want to do that anymore, you can quickly jump on the bus and you'll have no transit benefits. And if you're DCPS, they do preload them automatically into your card. So you'll just, once you set it up, you're kind of good to go. And then someone mentioned that REI has free bike repairs, or they did before the pandemic. That's good to know. Another good tip. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that. Yeah, no, the bike share thing that's a really great announcement that happened, I think basically in the last week. So I don't know how widely it's been distributed yet. So you guys are probably some of the first people to know about it outside of like myself and like Pedro. So definitely we'll be sharing that flyer. You can go ahead, get yourself signed up. And if you have any other questions, then please feel free to type them in. But if not, we can wrap it up. And thank you so much. We'll be sharing all the resources in this webinar that we talked about, and any other ones that we thought are related and would benefit you as well.
I think Teresa has their hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to know? Or if we have
Teresa.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello, thank you for a great session. I was wondering, are you going to do another one of this session in the near future?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we might be doing another one in like a couple months, but if not, we're actually going to record it. We're going to share the recording if that's beneficial to you. We also, yeah.
Wonderful. I didn't realize it was being recorded. Thank you.
Oh yes, and now your voice will be on it as well. You'll have a personal stake in this recording. But yes, I think please share with your staff. The e-bikes are a great option. You're right. You'll be much less sweaty, especially as we head into this DC summer, which we know are not the friendliest. But yes, yes, McKinley. Great. Yeah, you guys are, if you're right by gearing up, then you're right by the Metropolitan Branch Trail. So that's great. But yeah, no one else has any other questions or comments, I think.
Where are you sharing this?
Oh, we'll be sharing it via email. So if you register for the webinar, which you did in order to be here now, so you'll receive everything via email. And then in terms of the recording, we'll also have the recording available on the goDCgo YouTube channel. So you misplaced the email, no worries. You can go check out our YouTube channel. And not only will this webinar be there, but actually my past webinars as well on all the other modes will also be there.
Thank you. I tried just now going on to get the Capital Bike Share free membership for DCPS.
Oh, great.
And I'm not working for me so far. I went to the goDCgo.com/CABI-discount. That's a link I got off of the flyer.
Oh, yes. So that we need to update. Apologies. They changed the website. Is this him? Sorry. Who's speaking?
Jessica?
Jessica. Did you just email me?
Yes.
Okay.
About maps.
About the maps. Okay. Oh, great. Sorry. Someone else also emailed me about the Capital Bike membership. So what I'll do is I'll in the email, the post-webinar email, I'll make sure to specifically highlight the new link so you can go visit it, and we'll make sure to update our goDCgo materials. Again, this just happened in the last week, so want to make sure I told people, but we didn't get a chance to update some of the materials that we have. So I'll make sure to specifically call out that link, and it's also in the slides. So once I share the slides, you'll have the link to the new page. Yeah, they changed the URL on me. That was great.
Fantastic. This was a great session. Thank you.
Oh, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for staying in. I know it was a pretty nice day today, so I appreciate it. And Pedro, did you have any last words you wanted to say?
No, thank you, Barbara, for having me, and thanks everyone for your awesome questions and interaction.
Thank you. Bye.
I had a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. If we wanted to refer this to other colleagues that were not able to attend, like the webinar today, how can we do that?
Oh, yeah, sure. So post the webinar in like a day or two. If not early next week, we'll be sending out like a recap email. So we'll include the slides and a recording as well. So like any questions that kind of came up. And then we also put the recording of the webinar on our YouTube channel. So
Got it.
Misplace the email. You can always find it there. And also, I'm here, so
got it. And I really appreciate that. Really informative seminar. I have a colleague here who wanted to capitalize on the incentive. Is attend